We're looking at the book, The Sea of Energy in Which the Earth Floats. I don't know how many copies of this book are left. When I bought this book years ago, there was many copies. I just looked right down, I didn't see many. And sadly, sometimes books can cost so much money. I mean, I saw a book, there was a few books that I wanted that were $3,500, and that's because they're, you can't get them anymore. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. So, and also, books going for hundreds of dollars or $1,000. It's, when the original price was like $29, right? But how do we preserve these old books, these masterpieces, right? This is a reprint, or it's a newer edition of an original book that was from 1931, I think it was. Introduction to the 5th edition. This is the 5th edition, right? At a recent Kiwanis meeting, I heard a lecture given by the public relations officer of the Bell Telephone Company. The speaker illustrated his lecture with a historical film by Bell Laboratories justifying their position as a research organization and a leader in communications. It was interesting to note that although the film was essentially correct, the story did not coincide in all particulars with what actually took place. For example, Bell gave Mr. Edison the credit for the electric light. He definitely deserves a great deal of credit. However, Edison only took a known principle of the day and produced a workable lamp globe by discovering through tedious trial and error the one thing, the tungsten filament, which would stand up under the crude vacuum systems then available to him. Naturally enough, the Bell film also gave Alexander Graham Bell great credit for the telephone, but it was really Josias Coppersmith who first made a practical demonstration of a telephone. Likewise, the narrator in the film spoke of how Mr. Farnsworth had developed television. In fact, the first television demonstration was made by Francis Jenkins to Secretary of the Navy Wilbur at the old Naval Radio Station in Washington, D.C. in June 1925. See how history has many different parts to it, right? That's why it's so important to read many books, and then you start to put a more complete picture together, right? By reading many books, right? Because school books are not going to have this kind of information in it, right? Will they? I don't think they do. They just want to have like the dates, the names, what else? Dates, names, and like the meaning of what took place, right? Like what's the meaning of what happened, right? So how do we get more? We have to read more. This could be extra credit. And teachers love learning, so teachers just love to learn. They would love to know how free energy works. I don't know any teachers that would not love to know how free energy works. So all this stuff on the internet about, teachers are intentionally teaching the wrong thing. What? I don't know what planet that's on. All the teachers I've met want to learn everything they can. And they even say that, right? They'll say it right to you. I'm here to learn. And that's why they teach, right? Because teaching is the great way to learn. What does this say? Research organizations such as Bell Labs have succeeded in large part because they have been able to inform the world of their work and thus market it. On the other hand, many young men, Francis Jenkins, for example, have come and gone disappearing into obscurity, making great discoveries but receiving no credit for them, unable to develop them fully. I think one of the greatest such discoveries was the invention of the radio by the Spanish physicist Slava. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm just kind of saying Slava. 150 years before radio was generally known, Slava transmitted radio signals from an island off the coast of Spain back to the mainland. CBS, The Industries of Tomorrow, April 24th, 1937. This is why it's so important to read a lot, right? So when people on the internet say, there's people on the internet that will make comments saying, oh, you're uneducated and this and that. You know what? Really? Uneducated? What's education? Education is to learn, to study, to think together, to collaborate, to discuss. But then people say, well, when people say things like that, they're talking about themselves, right? Look, instead of being a bully, we can get books and read, right? And not put people down. Imagine if we took like 1,000 bullies that just go on the internet and tell people they're uneducated and they're stupid and they can't, they've never taken a science class. If we took 1,000 of those, right? Which, who knows, maybe there's not even 1,000 bullies in the world. Maybe it's just a few of them and they're just very busy on the internet, right? But let's say there is 1,000, if there was. Put them all together and give them all these different books to study, right? And they say you could just sleep on the book and you'll absorb the information, because we learn in many ways. You just sleep on a book and you'll absorb some of that. There's been studies done on that, right? Before I even knew that, I was falling asleep on my books my whole life. And I couldn't figure out why I was so familiar with the books I was reading that I hadn't read yet. It's because I was falling asleep on them. Some people say that's true, and I don't disagree with it. I'm just open to it, and I'm just sharing a story with you. Yeah, being a bully is not a good thing to do, and YouTube has a zero tolerance for it. They don't allow those bully comments anymore, and anybody can report a bully comment. And you can report that, and they'll take it off. 50 years before the advent of the atomic bomb, Dr. Gustav Le Bon published a book describing what a nuclear fission reaction would be like, estimating it would be equivalent to the energy released by 1.34 million barrels of gunpowder. I am told that years later, Albert Einstein wrote a letter to Le Bon's daughter stating that Dr. Le Bon, physician turned physicist, was truly the father of nuclear physics. Though generally unheralded, Le Bon's position as a nuclear pioneer can easily be verified simply by going to one of our better stocked public libraries and checking out his book, The Evolution of Matter. And what does that remind you of, that title? It reminds me of Paramahamsa Tiwari's books, right? When we talk about matter, And I highly recommend studying Paramahamsa Tiwari. He's a brilliant man, brilliant. And his teachings will be common knowledge in schools one day, if they're not already. At this point, the reader may well ask what my concern is with such obscure individual research. The reader may also question my interest in scientific experiments whose results do not behave in accord with accepted scientific dogma. My answer is that I am a scientist and the son of a scientist, and I desire to see facts published as they really are. What does that remind you of? Does that remind you of you? Simple facts. Give me the facts, right? That's what we all want. It's built into us. It's built into us. Introduction to the fifth edition revised. In order to set the record straight, I am offering the following affidavit. Sworn affidavit. I, John E. Morey, being of sound mind at the age of 82, do hereby make the following declaration of my own free will and swear under oath that it is true. To the best of my knowledge, I am the only living person to have witnessed the radiant energy device actually working. I grew up as a boy being allowed to witness my father's work on his radiant energy device. On numerous occasions, I saw the lights light, the motor run, and the heating units operate. My father always worked at night as the sun's rays were too strong for his detector. When I had been a good boy, my reward was to go to the basement laboratory and watch my father work. I remember that I was young enough that my pajamas had feet in them, all one piece. If you look on page 137, revised, 5th edition, you will see my father's roll-top desk. To the right of that, a white table. Then there is an old leather couch that I was allowed to sit on and watch my father work. On this particular night, Dad was installing relays to protect the detector from burning out when the current of the surges got too high. Much to his surprise, he found that the system reacted to where he was standing. As he walked away from the units, you could hear the relays trip and the unit would turn off. When he came back to his radiant energy unit, the relays turned on, turning the unit on. He tried, when he came back to his radiant energy unit, the relays turned on, turning the unit on. Okay. He tried a second time walking away from the unit. The unit turned off. He began to get excited because the radiant energy unit was sensitive to his body's presence. This time, he backed away from the unit, counting the steps, and the unit turned off. He took a couple more steps, and the rascal I put my foot toward the unit and tripped it so that it came back on. At that point, he became very excited, calling my mother to come and see what he had discovered. When she got there, Father told her, "The unit is not only sensitive to my body presence, but it senses the distance I am from it." So he proceeded to show my mother what he did. I thought I will do it one more time. Okay, let's look around here and see if we can find. I like when I see numbers. I'm going to look for numbers right now. I like numbers a lot. I like stories too. Oh, this says Dr. T. Henry Morey in Salt Lake City, Utah, October 1970. Forward, Dr. Robert Bass, PhD. Let's see what this is. I see 50,000 watts here, so let's see what this says. The Morey radiant energy device for tapping Fitzgerald, Tesla, Schumann resonances. Oh, it's using all those words. Resonances is revisited. Discovered in 1911 through 1926 by the late T. Henry Morey, this device produced 50,000 watts of AC power using a 300-foot antenna. Unfortunately, this technology was not released due to patent rejections without proper investigation. See, what has happened is, because when we start tapping into the infinite energy of space, which is just the space, that is right here, right? The space between these pages, right here, just right here where my hand is. When we're tapping into that infinite energy, infinite potential energy, until it's used, then it's not potential, it's actual, right? But it's actual energy. The potential just means we haven't used it yet, but it's there. But when we tap into that in ways that are beyond our present popular or unpopular theories and principles, it can just get thrown out, right? Now, if we discover something, I'm just going to say it in this way. What if we discover a way of using energy that's 1,000,000 years ahead of our time? You know that happens, right? Absolutely. First of all, there is no time. Fundamentally, there is no time. We can discover, we have access, we can do anything. Anything that can one day be done can be done now. That's one way of thinking about it, right? So the question is, what would you like to do? That's the question that you can ask yourself. I ask myself that too. I want to make my Roadrunner Pro have a range extender on it so I can go a little further. That's what I would like to do. So I'm working on that, and I'll take you along the journey. You'll be right there with me the whole time, okay? You've been with me this whole time on this journey with me. And thank you for being there with me. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate the company. Let's see. We suggest that this device is physically capable of efficiently tapping solar energy maintained. Fitzgerald Tesla Schumann resonances in the Earth ionosphere cavity. A massive breakthrough in energy technology is possible if this device is to be reinvestigated and rebuilt. Now remember, this is just one way of doing it. How many ways do you think we can access the infinite energy potential that's everywhere? Endless ways. Endless. Okay? So how would you like to access it? You can literally, this is one of the things we can do. We can take, because we know that 95% of the free energy devices on the internet are fake, right? 95%. That's what my research and study indicate that. And if you want to look deeper into that, look at the movies, the documentaries called Thrive. There's Thrive 1 and Thrive 2. And I think it's in Thrive 2, possibly in Thrive 1 as well. They said 95% of the free energy devices they investigated, and they investigated them thoroughly. 5% were absolutely no doubt real. Absolutely real free energy devices, right? And 95% were not. Okay? They were just... They were said to not be free energy devices. Okay, so now if someone's starting out in the field and they go, oh, well, how do we know what's real, what's not real? Well, nature is so generous that I do wonder, could we just take that 95%, right? That 95% of the energy systems that don't work, and what if we start matching parts and come up with our own idea of how to access that infinite energy? And then can we join the 5%, right? Can we repurpose that 95% that doesn't work? That's how generous nature is, okay? Infinite possibility and infinite inevitability. Or we can just study the 5%, study those, and try to replicate or see what we're inspired to create when we study that 5%, right? When we study the 5% of what actually does work for sure, right? So let's see where we are here. Background. On 8/6/2006, U.S. Energy Secretary Dr. Steve Chu, a Nobel laureate physicist, then at UCB, and director of LBNI, had stated in his testimony before the Subcommittee on Energy of the Committee of Science, U.S. House of Representatives, although there is currently no magic bullet to solve the energy problem, we believe that utilization of the sun holds significant untapped promise for reducing the need of fossil fuels. The technology in mind was likely solar power via improved solar cell technology and possible artificial photosynthesis. However, solar energy may be obtained indirectly and ultra efficiently in a novel way via the resonant circuitry implementable via Moray radiant energy device. The radiant energy device contained a primitive version of the transistor. Moray was unjustly denied a patent by the USPTO on his germanium triode. on the fallacious grounds that a cold cathode is physically impossible. Yet, ironically, when the transistor was announced by Bell Labs in 1947, the words germanium and two gold strips were used. So he was just so far ahead of his time that they just threw him out, or just didn't acknowledge him. They didn't acknowledge him. And we still do that. It's always happening. That's why we need public education, right? We have to share with each other. And all the people that have the highest level of knowledge have an obligation, really. This is the way I was taught. It's an obligation to teach in the simplest words you can create or find to the masses, to anybody, so a child can understand. Then when those children grow up, we don't have to hear people saying there's no such thing as free energy. You can't do it. You can't do it. I don't know where people are getting that from. I was raised that nothing's impossible. Set your mind to it. You can achieve anything. And I hear this all the time. Like, growing up, just everyone's talking about this, right? And teachers talk this way too. Witnesses to the Moray Radiant Energy Device. The late Dr. Harvey Fletcher is an important and credible witness to the Moray Radiant Energy Device. He was president of the American Physical Society, APS, and a member of the National Academy of Science, NAS. In the opinion of many, he should have shared the Nobel Prize awarded to his teacher, Millikan, after Fletcher conceived and with his own hands performed the celebrated oil drop experiment, which first measured the charge on an electron. Fletcher was also the father of stereophonic sound and longtime director of research at the Bell Telephone Labs in New Jersey. When Fletcher was around 95 years of age, approximately in 1980, Fletcher told BYU professor of physics and astronomy, Dr. Robert W. Bass, face-to-face, that he had never been able to figure out how Moray had managed to light up a bank of 36 separate 100-watt electric light bulbs, a waffle iron, and a small motor using nothing more than a 300-foot antenna and a ground connection between an electric circuit or equipment and the earth, and an electrical circuit containing wooden box of a size less than 1 cubic foot and weighing less than 60 pounds. The 5,000 watts of AC power eventually increased to 50,000 watts, usually persisted for about 2 weeks before something in the circuit box burned out. The witnesses were allowed to choose an arbitrary spot in the desert and drove Moray and his apparatus to places 25 and 50 miles from the nearest power line, so that it could not possibly have been induction from any known power source. Yeah, but it's induction from the universe, from cosmic energy, right? It's induction by the infinite will works of nature. That's how I think of it, right? While Moray stood aside, the witnesses were allowed to take apart and reassemble everything in the box, except for one small spherical component, smaller than a ping pong ball, called a Moray Radiant Energy Device, which Moray concealed in his vest pocket and later held hidden in his clenched fist when he inserted it into the box. That sounds like it to me, like it's some kind of a special metal. I'm guessing it's just some kind of material, a metal, right? What else could it be? Let's think of what kind of metal that could be. What kind of metal could that be? It could just be a metal that withstands high temperature or is very conductive. I don't think it's a big secret. That's my thoughts. I think it's just, I think it's something very simple. And if it wasn't simple, it can be, right? I think it can be. I don't think things don't have to be complicated. Remember, there's always another way to do something. What's the engineer's mantra, right? What's the engineer's saying that they say? There's always another way. There's always another way to solve a challenge. Always. Okay? And we specialize in impossibility, right? Yeah, humanity specializes in impossibility, meaning we overcome it all the time. Okay, where are we? Fletcher, the most famous scientist in his native Utah, to which he frequently returned, spent literally decades trying unsuccessfully to persuade Morey to trust the Bell Labs enough to travel to New Jersey and disclose his secret. Eventually, Fletcher, self-evidently inspired by Morey's unjustly rejected patent application for a germanium triode, based upon the USPTO's mistaken position that a cold cathode is physically impossible. I mean, who is the patent office to say what's possible and not possible? That doesn't make any sense. If something works and they can prove it works, are you going to say, that doesn't fit into our knowledge? That doesn't make any sense. I really can't believe it. I don't think that's happening anymore, but I sure hope not. I sure hope that's not happening anymore. But remember, the most important thing, education. So educate, right? That's the most important thing. And I mean, make YouTube videos, make hundreds of them, make thousands of them. Educate about the little pieces of knowledge that you understand, right? I'll do my best to do that too. I'm just a beginner though. I know very little. I know the least of everyone that I talk to. Everybody knows like 1,000 million times more than me. Okay, let's see what I'm talking about here. Started the solid state physics R&D project at Bell Labs, which led in 1947 to the announcement of the transistor and a Nobel Prize for two of Fletcher's subordinates. This historical fact gives strong credibility to the scientific merit of Dr. Morey's repeated demonstrations. The operational secrets and some of the practical aspects of how the Morey radiant energy device works are still alive with his 82-year-old surviving son, John Morey, who has told Bass that he knows his late father's detailed several-year R&D plan for rendering the Morey radiant energy device more reliable and so patentable. John Morey told Bass, "I am not a philanthropist," and that his father's dying wish and last words were, "Don't give it away." And you know what? Don't give it away. What does that mean? It's fine to keep your secrets, but I think if there's any way to educate about all the theory of how things work, right? While still keeping your particular design. But we need education of the theory. Maybe that's what this book is. It's already being done, right? But I'm just saying, thank goodness this book exists, and thank goodness everyone's doing everything they can to share everything they know as far as what can be shared, right? That's wonderful. And I think that's why we're where we are now. We're so far ahead now, and things are going so well. Let's see. Early years. Enough energy is coming to the Earth to light over 1.5 million 100-watt lamps for every human being on the Earth today. No fuel of any kind need be taken as a dead load, since this energy can be picked up directly by ocean liners, railroads, airplanes, automobiles, or any form of transportation. Heat, light, and power can be made available for use in all kinds of buildings and for all kinds of machinery. An example would be to pump water onto the desert lands, the power source being only a fraction of the weight of any steam plant or any kind of engine in use today. And all this at a fraction of the current cost. A wild dream? No. It's a proven practical reality, as hundreds of people know who have witnessed the Morey radiant energy invention, powered from the cosmos. So stated Thomas Henry Morey's original sea of energy in which the Earth floats. In order to understand the development of radiant energy, one must understand what took place in Dr. Morey's life. By looking at the background of the Moray family and of the family of his mother, Petronella Larsen, one can understand why Moray was, in a sense, a recluse and refused, in some instances, to discuss his invention with individuals who might otherwise have given him great credit. Okay, I'm going to look for numbers again. Let me look for numbers. You want to help me look for numbers? Let's see if we can find numbers here. We're looking for numbers now, not just dates, right? These are dates here. I'm looking for watts. Where's the watts at? I'm looking for wattage. I'm looking for energy. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, let me know if you see any watts here anywhere. You see any? Neither do I. I see engineers. I see this valve-like detector. I mean, the Moray system sounds kind of specialized to me. It sounds complex. What's important to remember is that anytime we have something complex, we can think about how to simplify it, right? It can be vastly simplified, especially once we understand the working principles of it, like how something actually works. Okay, we see money here, dollars, right? We're not looking for that though. I'm looking for watts, not dollars. Okay, I want power, looking for the power of the universe here. Okay, let's see. I don't see any watts yet. Do you see any watts? I see AC. I see 50,000 watts up here. I see 250,000 watts over here. Okay, let's look at the watts. Let's see what the watts are doing. Okay, let's see. Let's start here. As an innovative researcher, Henry Moray had a dream, a vision. And from his boyhood, he pursued this radiant energy. He did not really care where the energy came from. He only wished to demonstrate its existence to the scientific world. He was able to show that none of the energy came from within his device. Internally, the device was electrically dead. When it had not been connected and tuned to the antenna, when his device was set up, he could connect it to an antenna and a ground. And by priming it first and then tuning it as he primed it, the device would draw electrical energy. This high-frequency electrical energy produced up to 250,000 volts. Okay, so my thoughts when I'm reading this, I'm thinking of our electrical grid right now, right? Now, if you read on the internet, you'll read things like, oh, we could have had free energy if Tesla was allowed to this and that and all this. Guess what? We already have free energy. Everything Tesla invented, we're using it right now. Okay, for some reason, I read stories on the internet, or I read people sharing stories, and the stories can create a sense of like powerlessness, hopelessness, and there's nothing that can be done. But what if you knew for an absolute fact, or let's say an absolute possibility, right? But let's say, we could say it this way, if you knew for a fact, right? Just through your research, like if you studied a lot, let's just say you read a lot and studied a lot, and then you go, wait a second, oh yeah, we're using free energy right now. Like it just makes sense when you read a lot and you read all the different perspectives, not just one perspective, right? Which some people call dogma, right? Even this book said dogma, right? Dogmatic. It was referencing that, right? That's not going to get you there. You got to read all the different points of view, okay? You got to read the other side too, the free energy people that made free energy devices and spent a lifetime researching and using them, and were not able to be proven that their systems didn't work. They proved over and over and over that they worked, right? How much more proof do you want? And anyway, people say you can't prove something. People have to prove it for themselves. That's why we have to build our own systems, and then you can see it work for yourself. And then if you want to say that something you have in front of you is not working even though it is, like you see it working and you go, nope, not working, I don't believe it, because it doesn't fit into the physics that you believe in, the theories and principles you believe in, that's fine. That's an individual choice, right? I've seen people do that. You know, people have working systems right in front of them that they made, and they said, no, it doesn't work. I've seen people do that. I've seen people say that. So if someone doesn't want to see that something works, if they just want to keep saying that it doesn't work, no one can change that but that person. That's their job. It's no one else's job to convince someone, even though they'll say it is, right? People will say, you have to prove it to me. It's your job to prove it and all that stuff. Our main job is to help one another in every way that we can, but while taking care of ourselves, right? We can't help someone else more than we take care of ourselves. So we have to take care of ourselves the best we can. We help others the best we can. And always share our thoughts and education with each other to elevate humanity's maturity level in both philosophy, poetry, the arts, creativity, and science. And when I say science, I'm not talking about science that attacks people. I'm talking about all-inclusive science, where everyone's welcome and no one is discouraged. Okay? No one. Everyone's encouraged to go beyond, right? Beyond. What does that look like, right? And share that vision. Share it. And make sure you turn the comments off so you don't get attacked. That's my own personal recommendation. Plenty of people have already been through it. There's no need for anyone else to be attacked and distracted by lots of irrelevancies, right? Lots of irrelevancies. Okay, so, but there's also like I've always said, is most comments are really supportive and kind. So I thank all of you for that. But the distracting ones is like, I'm just kind of busy right now, okay? I'm really busy. Sorry. So, where were we here? Oh yeah, let's go to this. This high frequency electrical energy produced up to 250,000 volts, and it lighted a brighter light than witnesses had ever seen before. Heavy loads could be connected to the device without dimming the lights that were already connected to it. This device worked many miles from any known source of electrical energy, such as transmission lines or radio. The device produced up to 50,000 watts of power and worked for long periods. Okay, now what did it say over here? It said when his device was set up, he could connect it to an antenna and a ground. Now, what's an antenna? I think of an antenna as something that goes up in the air, right? What's the air? The air is also a ground. We're grounding to the air, right? To the fabric of space, right? You can say the fabric of space-time. What's the ground? The earth ground. That's another ground. You have two grounds, but you have two different potentials, right? Now, it sounds like he's using an oscillator. I'm just saying something that generates a frequency, right? And remember, the universe is oscillating at a frequency of 1 to the 120th times a second, cycles per second, right? So we can figure out what that is. I don't know what that number's called. I've looked it up. I've looked that up before, and you can look it up. But it's 1 to the 120th. Tom Bearden talked about that, if I recall correctly. I think that was Tom Bearden that said that. And there's many others that verified that as well. Okay, Tom Bearden didn't say anything that was new, as far as I know. That was just Tom Bearden, and he says that too. Tom Bearden says, "Look, I'm a researcher. I study other people, and he loves solving the puzzles. He brought information from all different directions, and he put it together. And special thanks to Tom Bearden, because I understood what he was saying to some degree. I mean, I'm quoting him a lot, but I'm still learning. I'm learning the most by sharing with you right now. When I talk to you, I'm actually going, oh yeah, that's what that means. So I'm figuring things out because I'm teaching, right? This is my sharing with you, my thought process. That's very important to me. And if we all do that, which I know we are, wow, what a beautiful day it is, isn't it? Beautiful day. I mean, we all want to go see other galaxies and other solar systems. There's billions and billions of solar systems like ours, right? Billions and billions of them. I just love it. It'd be great to go out and visit, hundreds of thousands of different civilizations that have achieved peace, right? And write a book on how these different civilizations achieved peace, how they got there. Wouldn't that be a great book to read? I'll write that book as soon as I begin my travels to other civilizations throughout the galaxy, right? And hopefully throughout many galaxies and many universes. And I'll bring that book back to you guys. Right? Because anything's possible. So I'm going to do my best. That's something I'm interested in, right? I'm interested in that. So I have my mindset to that. But I also have my mindset to making my Roadrunner go further on a charge, right? Because right now it'll go 50 miles an hour for 50 miles. But if I go fast, it goes more like 27 miles, I think. I think that's what I calculated. So I want to put a range extender on it. We'll see about that. You've seen it before. I've had batteries in this place. I don't know how many batteries I had, 40 batteries. And I was charging those with one battery at higher voltage going through some kind of motor with a load on it. And I was charging all those batteries at the rate of powering that motor. That's free energy. That's a negative energy circuit. Simple as that. How simple can it get, right? And then, and that motor can help the load. It can help move the scooter if I want to, but I'm just going to run a motor free spinning, right? Maybe I'll have a fan on it and it'll keep the battery cool or something. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. You can go along the journey with me, right? And if I do end up traveling the solar systems and the galaxies and writing this book on how civilizations throughout existence have transitioned away from war and fighting and causing harm to one another into a peaceful coexistence and worldwide solution-oriented collaboration, it'll be very exciting to write that and share it. And every library would get a copy of that. At least one copy, right? Libraries need books like this. All these books. This book should be in every library, right? Education is everything. And not a specific kind of education. Like, oh, we're just going to teach this little part. And then you have all these people walking around going, there's no such thing as free energy. What? You have to do extra credit on yourself, even if you don't get credit for it, right? You have to keep reading. What is extra credit? To me, extra credit is, in school, is the opportunity to go beyond the basic assignments, right? Yeah, so do it for yourself. Do it for humanity. Learn more, right? And stop bullying. No bullying. No more of that. No. Where were we? I think we're over here. Let's see. Oh, I was talking about the antenna, right? So there's an antenna going to the sky, and I think you said it was 300 feet. Was it a 300-foot antenna? That might have been on a page back here, right? So this is when taking notes is good, because if you take notes, I would have written down that antenna link. I know he said 300 feet, though. I know that. But I want to see it right now for some reason. It's just how my brain works. It wants to know. It wants to see it. But I know it was 300. I could see it right now. I could just see it. Yeah, right there. I was right. I knew it was 300. I knew it. 300-foot antenna. See that? See, it's always putting a puzzle together and solving a mystery, right? Learning to see, everyone. That's what we're doing, always. Using nothing more than a 300-foot antenna. Okay? 300 feet antenna. That sounds like a wire just going straight up into the sky, right? And a ground. Okay? And a ground. Connection between an electric circuit or equipment and the earth. And an electrical circuit containing wooden box of a size less than 1 cubic foot and weighing less than 60 pounds the 5,000 watts of AC power eventually increased to 50,000 watts. So it'd start at 5,000 and go up to 50,000, and then it would burn itself out eventually, right? Because it was too much power. It sounds like it just kept on building up and building up and building up. That's what they said earlier. So there's some kind of oscillator, right? And Don Smith said this. In fact, wait a second. Wow. Don Smith. What did Don Smith say? Who are we talking about right now? Don Smith. Who are we talking about? Right here. The Don Smith Magnetic Resonance Energy Crafting Systematic Index. Right? Now, Don Smith said, if I understood him correctly, that you could take a wire and run it up a mountain, right? And pound like a rod, a conductive material that can carry electricity into the ground, pound a rod into the ground. And I would think that putting like salt water there, you know, when hitting that rod in, putting salt water there to help it conduct, help it connect. And then running that wire down, right? Running it down the mountain. I don't know how many feet, a few hundred feet, just guessing. And then run another rod into the ground there, right? So we have 200 feet of elevation, right? Approximately. I'm just making up a number, but you could try to 10 feet, 20 feet, 50 feet, and just see what happens. But it needs to be a difference in elevation, up and down, right? A difference in height in a mountain, right? And then does it make a difference on what mountain you're on, right? And maybe it does. I think it would. Different kind of material mountains, right? There's different kind of mountains, different kind of rocks, different kind of materials, different kind of minerals. I think that could make a significant difference. But I would definitely use salt water around where we're pounding the rods in. And the rods should probably go in, I would guess, at least a few feet into the ground, right? Have a copper wire connected to that. And then have a copper wire connected to a rod that goes in the ground at a different point in the mountain, right? That's higher or lower. It has to be one higher, one lower. And then those two pieces of wire, putting a meter on that, just like it is. No oscillations, not even adding any oscillations. Just putting a meter on it. And try setting on AC, try to setting it on DC, see what it does. I don't know, run it through a full bridge rectifier, see what happens. But it sounds like what's happening in this book is he's using the difference between a rod going up into the air, into the sky, right? And then a rod going into the ground, and that's the two differences. But then using some kind of oscillation, right? Or some kind of oscillation. I think of Nikola Tesla when he had those oscillators. I think of a pendulum just going tick, tick, ting, 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 ting. Some kind of oscillation to kind of wake up electrons, those electron pairs, right? If we think of electron pairs coming from the sun, Don Smith talked about this, electron pairs coming from the sun. A big electron will team up with a small electron, and they move in the infinity symbol. Amps, volts, amps, volts, amps, volts, right? Infinity. Now, how do we begin that electron pair to start flowing energy from, we can call it space-time, cosmic energy, virtual particle flux fields, tachyon waves, gravity waves, dark energy, dark matter. There's many words, okay? But we can also call it the zero-point field. Now, we're not talking about dogma right now. We're not talking about exclusivity or any specific research. We're talking about a completely open experiment, an open thought experiment, completely open, okay? Criticism, need not be present. This is about discovery and building, okay? That's what we're doing right now. Everyone's working to build, okay? Everyone gets to contribute, and no one gets to put anybody else down. That's not what we're doing. We're too busy making stuff. Okay, if you feel like you need to bully someone or you need to pick on somebody, or you just want to feel like you're more powerful than someone else, try helping someone. See how good you feel about that. Try building something. Let's build an empire of understanding, clarity, and truth, right? Remember, let there be light? Let there be light. Light means let there be understanding, let there be collaboration. How do we get the electron pairs to flow energy from the 0 point fields? If I say it that way, I'm saying it plural, right? Because I see it as infinite 0 point fields, just infinite layers, right? Infinite variables, infinite potential, infinite energy, infinite everything. That's what we live in. That's what we exist in. Okay? And that's how I see right now. That's how things look to me after lots and lots of reading, right? I'm not going to say how many books I've read, but how could I even count it? Okay? Let's just say my research and study indicated, and we're doing a thought experiment, okay? And I'm not saying I know more than anybody else. I know the least of anyone that I have met. Everybody seems to know more than me. That's fine with me. That's fine. I'm very happy with that. That means I have a lot I can learn from people. So how do we get the energy flowing from the 0 point fields? And if I say it this way, through the electron pairs, through them, into our circuitry, right? With weak, what I'll call magnetic fields or electromagnetic fields, or the oscillations of a Tesla coil, right? What's a Tesla coil? Milliamps at high voltage, right? Very low amperage, high voltage. Those oscillations, those flux fields, right, from a Tesla coil, will set those electron pairs in motion and give us amps, volts, amps, volts, amps, volts. Many people have replicated Don Smith's systems, and they're making these free energy things, they're making these free energy circuits on the internet. Kids, I see kids doing this, and I'm not encouraging kids to do this, but I see kids very young, in all ages of kids and teenagers, all different ages, right, that are making these things. And they what sometimes is said is like, I don't know how to share this with people. They don't know how. Maybe they just replicated it because they just get it. And they're like, yeah, they get it and they made it work, but they don't know how to talk about it, share it. They don't know how to tell people what they did. They just made it work. And you can see that it's obviously working, right? Because they're lifting it up, they're showing you there's nothing underneath it, but they're lighting lights up with it. So I would say to that, the challenge would be to take that circuit and reduce it in power, right? Because to me, I always say, let's make a 1 watt system between 1 watts and 100 watts maximum, right? Between 1 watt and 100 watts. And that can be adjustable, where it's up to 100 watts or down to 1 watt, where it's putting more energy out between 1 watt and 100 watts, right, than it takes to run that system, right? And when a circuit becomes self-oscillating, if we say it that way, right, and then it can just keep going, and it's running off a 12-volt battery, and that battery voltage is staying charged. That's good too. So how can the circuit be simplified? So the challenge I would give myself, if I was there if I was in the shoes of these people that have achieved this Don Smith system, if I say it that way, right? Because they either made a Don Smith system or they made a variance of it, is to keep simplifying it and simplifying it. How simple can you reduce that down to? And can you reduce it down to put out an extra watt, between 1 watt and 100 watts, based on how much you turn the knob or move these two coils closer or further together, or move them relative to one another, right? One coil inside the other, and the way you move those relative to one another. And just making a really small toy version of that. And it doesn't have to be something that you sell, but it can be an educational tool that people can replicate. Because to me, when I look at the Don Smith system, I see all these big parts. I see people replicating the Don Smith circuits at full scale, like the full size. Those things are so powerful. I mean, how many hundreds and thousands of watts are we talking about? Wow. I just want 1 watt, like, can we make like a 5 watt version of that? So keep going. Don't give up. And if you set your mind to simplicity and minimalism, let's see what comes out the other side. Now, of course, there's going to be thousands of people telling you they want to buy your system. Don't share it with anybody. And that's fine, but make a version of it that you can also share with people, right? Because if you just wait for the people that want to bring it out, like tell you they're going to help bring the product out, we already have, hundreds of thousands of those stories. And it's even happening right now today, where people right now are waiting for that business deal, right? They're in the middle of a deal where they're, whether they're getting paid or not at this point in time. Usually people are somehow in some kind of business deal where they can't share they actually can't share anything about it. Now, Don Smith said that he was making his investors or business partners very unhappy because when Don saw that the products weren't coming out to the public, because in the beginning he was told they were already out, and he actually says that in some of the videos. He's like, oh yeah, these are being sold all over the world. But at some point he realized that these things were not available to people, and that things weren't moving forward, and that companies that I guess maybe I don't know if they bought the patents or made some kind of agreement with him, with Don Smith, where there were certain things he couldn't say about how his systems worked. But yet he found a way to, and this is what his son was saying. His son was saying in one of the meetings, his son was saying that even though he's not supposed to be there sharing, he still did. He still went to meetings, right, all over the world, and shared the fundamentals, right, the essentials of how he related to his experiments. And he would say that you can't just replicate this exact thing on the picture. You have to use your imagination to think of how this might work. So there's your puzzle and mystery. If you like solving, it's a treasure hunt. The treasure is, how do we access this infinite potential energy? And I'm just going to call it infinite energy, because that's what it is. It is infinite energy, right in the palm of my hand, right here. There's enough energy in the palm of my hand, right here, to power this planet without end. Because if we use the energy in my hand, the palm of my hand right now, if we use that energy to power the world, to power all the lights in the world, all the power needs, right, all the watts that were needed, it would replenish itself at 1 to the 120th cycles per second, right? 1 with 120 zeros. At that speed, it would replenish itself instantly, right? Instantaneously. And guess what part of the universe replenishes that space in my hand? The entire universe and beyond, right? If it's a closed system, if the universe is a closed system, then the entire universe replenishes that energy space in my hand. If the universe is an open system, then the energy comes from probably both our universe as well as other universes, or at least one other universe, right? And then maybe our universe and the other universe are symbiotically powering one another, right? In the infinity symbol, again, right? Plus, minus, minus, plus, alternating, right? So is the universe AC or is it DC? Is it an impulse, right? What is it? Okay, so what do we have? Did my page turn here? Okay. Because he was an intuitive researcher, he had built solid-state devices using second and third order magnitudes of reasoning, skipping from building a simple crystal set to searching for a detector that would bring in this energy. He assumed at first that this energy was electromagnetic in origin. However, he never claimed that it was electromagnetic in nature. He assumed at first that this energy came from the earth, but later he believed it was from the universe. Dark energy, dark matter, cosmic energy, virtual particle flux fields, tachyon waves, gravity waves, zero-point fields, Dirac-C, D-I-R-A-C, S-E-A, Dirac-C, an ocean of electrons. That's 8 right there, right? That's 8 altogether right there. That's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. That's the universe. Okay. Finally, he began to believe that it was present throughout all space. See this? Intermolecular space, as well as terrestrial and celestial space. He did not necessarily understand how his detectors operated. Only that if he very carefully built the device according to his calculations, it worked. So it had to have certain things had to be exact, right? Certain things had to be exact for it to work, right? For that system to work, okay. He was able to demonstrate the existence of an energy that today, though it has not been identified or proven, has been theorized by many researchers. Henry was not a physicist. He was by training and experience an electrical engineer. The disciplines of the rest of the scientific world meant little to him, which gave rise to some of the difficulty that developed in communication between him and the scientists of his day. Many attempts have been made to harness the forces of nature to directly produce usable electrical power, and many have failed. Dr. Moray attempted to do it and succeeded, producing at first only a spark, which he developed to a few watts, and finally thousands of watts of power. And it says see figure 9. Okay, let's see where the figures are. Oh, right there. It says early RE device at base of antenna. The coils are superficial and used by Henry only to protect his discovery. Okay, so it's saying that those coils were not really, I don't think they were even part of it. Or not as significant as it may seem. But look here, I'm looking at the simplicity of this. It does look pretty simple. Look, Don Smith said you can get energy just by putting up 2 poles in the same mountain at 2 different heights. And be careful not to touch those 2 because they can electrocute you. Right there, without even oscillating anything. Now, if nothing came out of that, what would I do? I would try to find a way to oscillate one side of those wires or both sides, right? Just like an electric motor, it's like splitting the positive or splitting the negative. Try to run a motor with the ground wire. Try to make something oscillate and see what happens. See what that does. But be careful though, because that thing could actually blast like 50,000 volts out of the ground or 100,000 volts. Who knows? Experiments can be deadly. We have to be very careful. And the Earth is very powerful, right? Matter is charged with a lot of energy, and so is the space between matter, in matter, right? And the very molecules and atoms that make up space. Okay, where were we? Let's see. As early as 1904, Nikola Tesla, experimenting with AC currents of high potential and high frequency, said, "Ere many generations pass, our machinery will be driven by a power obtainable at any point in the universe. Throughout space, there is energy. Is this energy static or kinetic? If static, our hopes are in vain. If kinetic, and this we know, it is for certain, then it is a mere question of time when men will succeed in attaching their machinery to the very wheelwork of nature. Radiant energy was first presented years before the world was ready to accept it in principle or understand its magnitude. History has again shown the unwillingness of men to accept and adapt to drastic change or new ideas. Henry Moray realized the magnitude of his discovery and felt the burden of responsibility for what could well be the future of mankind. His sincere desire was to place his knowledge where it could do the most good for all, instead of in the hands of a few who were selfish for power and wealth. So if a person was following in Moray's footsteps, and was thinking, like Moray said, don't give it away, don't give it away. I don't know what he meant by that. Clearly, he wants people to have access to this technology. So what we have to do is, I think, as one idea, one possibility, is educate people, right? So if Moray could come to our time right now, if he could come here, which is really to say anyone that's followed his work, to make videos and share what you understand, right? And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just share your thought experiments. Because Moray lives on in all the people that have studied him, right? As in me, like I'm studying him, so I'm sharing my thoughts and what I think of when I read this. And I'm telling you right now, based on what Don Smith said, we don't even need an oscillator. You just need a mountain and put poles at 2 different points in the mountain at 2 different heights, right? 2 different elevations. And watch out for those 2 wires, because if you touched them both, I think it would electrocute a person to death. You might get a very unpleasant shock there. And I think Don made it very clear not to ever hurt yourself with that. It's very dangerous. Yeah, I'm going to have to do that experiment someday. I can probably bring the wire that I have over here. These big coils of wire right here. See these? Those are big coils of wire. I don't know how many feet I have, but I can run those at 2 different points in a mountain, right into the ground. I even bought a couple of nails, like real long nails, to drive into the ground, and then drive that wire into the ground, and then make sure there's salt water there to help it connect to the ground real well, and just see what's happening. See what the Earth is up to, right? See what the Earth is doing. See if a voltmeter can read that, and then if it doesn't do anything, see how I can oscillate one of those lines, right, or both of them, and see what can happen, and just keep trying different experiments. Right? Because what do they say? There's always another way. There's always another way, right? As one example of his selflessness, on July 24th, 1925, while conferring with Senator Reed Smoot at the senator's invitation in his Salt Lake City office in the Hotel Utah, Henry Moray offered his radiant energy discovery to the United States government gratis. Gratis. Although it now sounds unbelievable in this day of the serious energy crunch, the senator thanked Moray but stated that the U.S. government would decline such an offer on the grounds that the government was not competing with public utilities. What? I mean, that's just this. The government is the public. That's the public. What are we talking about here? Competing? I don't understand that. Okay, that I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Yeah, I think we're at the point now where we're just like everyone's sharing how they relate to what they know and what they think about in videos, and then we all take it upon ourselves to carefully experiment and replicate in our own personal way, right? And be influenced by the masters, standing on the shoulders of giants, and then share with one another how we see and how we do things. People are getting solar panels, right, on their houses. That's a free energy system, right? You're collecting the free energy from the sun. I know they cost a lot, and machines cost a lot. Yeah, I mean, all these. I'm not saying it doesn't cost a lot. I'm just saying there's free energies everywhere, right? We just choose how we access it. So I remember Bill Nye, the science guy, said, he loves science, right? He was so passionate about science. And he had said that we're only using 1% of the energy in space, 1% of it to power our circuits. And I'm thinking it's probably more like 0.0000001%, right? But even at 1%, that means we still have 99% we can still use. And that's just the energy in space. We're using 1%, Bill Nye said, right? Yeah. So let's see where we are here. And Bill Nye's an example of someone who didn't major in, I don't think he majored in science, but he was so passionate about it and so excited about science that, look, he inspired generations of scientists. So that just shows you anything really is possible. Okay, because of conflicting interests, some people refused to become involved. Others deliberately interfered with the development of radiant energy. The many offers Maury received for radiant energy had to be carefully considered for intent and chances for successful development. In the early years of its development, the radiant energy device was minutely examined during many tests and demonstrations. Some people came to view this device with no other purpose in mind than to prove it a fraud. But no one was ever able to find any evidence of fraud, and all admitted that it was beyond their comprehension. That's because they didn't study the theories of what was taking place. You have to study. We have to do our homework, right? Okay. And setting out to prove something is fake is not, I don't know. I mean, what do we learn from that? Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe some people like doing that. I don't know. Maybe some people just like to go around and say everything's fake, right? And prove otherwise. Try to prove otherwise. To me, it's all about learning. I just want to learn and learn and learn. Okay, in the early years of its development, the radiant energy device was... let me see, did I already read that? Oh yeah, okay. Through these demonstrations, Dr. Maury increased his knowledge of the device, and in performing experiments, he widened his discoveries. Thus, let's see, early device at base of antenna. The coils are superficial and used by Henry only to protect his discovery. Oh, so there's something behind there that we can't see. So the discovery is inside those coils, right? What does this say? It says Henry Maury. So he's looking at his device there. So it looks like it's in that box right there. But like I said, we don't even need, from what Don Smith said, we can just have two poles at different points in the ground of a mountain. And we'll have energy right there. And then we have to figure out how to store it and what to do with it, right? Maybe we might have to, I don't know if it's AC or DC or what it is. But that can all be figured out. It could be rectified. It could be made to be usable in batteries and stored, right? I'll have to do that test soon. Okay, through these demonstrations, okay, let's see. Thus, let's see what's next. Thus improving the device and making it more efficient. On several occasions during these experiments, Henry failed to keep the device working. Refers to the experiments Fletcher states the device had burned out the detector and Henry had to discontinue his experiments for a time. The following is a booklet printed brief history of Maury radiant device. Okay, I'm just looking for numbers right now to see. I see oscillating nature. I'm looking for numbers right now. I'm looking for watts. Okay, I'm looking for numbers. Let's look for numbers. Looking for numbers. Let me know if you see any numbers here. These look like letters. Yeah, so if you don't think there's any energy in space, just right here, then it makes sense that people are going to say, well, you have to make sure there's no power lines around, and they're going to be like really puzzled by how it works. I mean, but once you know that it works and you start realizing how much energy is in space, right? Does it really make sense to keep going around saying there's no energy in space, there's no energy in space, right? I mean, the way that articles have been written about free energy devices is so strange when people say things like, oh, it doesn't make any sense, it's a mystery, where could the energy be coming from? It's like, yeah, we really need more education, like early on, right? So that people can know that. To all whom it may concern. This looks like it's just a lot of witnesses saying, yeah, it works for sure, it definitely works, definitely works. Tuning the third generation device. So it looks like there's a dial right there. I can't imagine what it felt like for this man to have this system and to know that, this is a pollution, and a way of not polluting the air. And and probably feeling like, this was going to really help people a lot. Oh, here's the antenna. It says antenna looking west to east. Oh, so it looks like this has one antenna here, and I'm not sure if that's another antenna. So is he saying one antenna is west and one is east? I don't know. That looks like it might be two 300-foot antennas, right? I'm guessing on that. That's one football field high, each of those. And is there a wire going across? That's just what it looks like to me right here looking at it. And when it says west to east, meaning one is west and one is east, right? And that reminds me of someone telling me that I can take an antenna, like an antenna from a car, like the old cars with the long antennas, and I could take one of those and angle it, I think 30 degrees off the ground, right? So 30 degrees off the ground, and then point it north. I think it's north is the direction, and connect that, and I don't know if it's to the positive or to the negative of a battery, and it's supposed to charge the battery over time. Someone told me that once. Isn't that neat? That's an experiment that anybody can do. I will try that one day. And I don't know if the other pole has to be connected to the ground or something to make that work. But I think it's just connecting that antenna directly to one of the battery posts, like a 12-volt battery, right? And someone was telling me that they had look at this. Someone was telling me that they had a battery, a 12-volt battery that was dead, like no good anymore. And it was down to like 5 volts. And it actually went up to, I think, over 13 volts, like it filled it up. It took a while. I think it took a couple months. It didn't fill it up fast. It was a very slow charge. The lights were then screwed out quickly. 575. Written description of the Murray valve for patent. That would be hard to read, right? Can you read that? Let's see if we can read this. That's hard to read, isn't it? That looks hard to read. But I often see, the one thing that's important to remember is, how do we take an invention and simplify it and minimalize it, right? Minimalism and simplicity, right? So I don't know what these are, some kind of drawings. Okay. What's this? Moray valve, radio powered by radiant energy. And that's the word that John Bedini always used. Radiant energy. His exact words, radiant energy. Picture of the Moray valve radio itself, no batteries, referred to by Moray as pocket radio, operated full-size speaker. Okay, these are letters again, experiments. There is considerable energy drawn from somewhere. Apparently you have satisfied yourself that it is not from other power stations in the city. Okay. Yeah, if you don't think there's any energy in space, like if you go on Google, there's just no room. It feels like no room to even think for a second that there's even any energy anywhere at all, right? But look at this Wimshurst free energy machine. Now I made a mess here because I'm doing some battery experiments. So I put all these batteries over here because I'm interested in charging batteries in as many different ways as I can think of and also can't think of. But let's make some room here. It's Einstein saying hi right there. He's pointing to the Wimshurst free energy machine. He's pointing over here to this. He's saying, turn the handle. See what happens. So we'll do that right now. Now the Wimshurst free energy machine is, I've read a lot of theories about how it works, but again, not one of those makes sense to me. Not one. When I look at this machine, yeah, not one word made sense to me. Not even one word. So when I look at this machine, what I see is two discs. See these discs? Counter rotating. That means this one's going this way and the other one's going the opposite way. And one thing I learned about something spinning in space is if you spin it one direction, it'll be like a plus, and you spin it the opposite direction, it'll be a minus. Like if you spin a magnet in space, right? Like think of the Bruce De Palma experiments, right? Bruce De Palma was a MIT graduate and also professor and also studied at Harvard, and a brilliant man, and he shared all of his research. So if you want to learn anything about free energy, go to Bruce De Palma's, go to his webpage. So notice how these two discs are counter-rotating. Do you see how this one's going clockwise, and the other one's going the opposite direction, right? Counterclockwise. See that? See, I'm just following each wheel separately. See what I did? You hear that? That's a Wimshurst machine. And the Wimshurst machine, what I see is, I see counter rotation, right? Two discs spinning in opposite directions. And this machine will not work if both of the wheels spin in the same direction. It will not work if the distance between the two wheels is too far apart. Okay? So these two wheels have to spin in opposite directions, very close to one another, for this to work. And then what do we have? These are the pickups. Let me touch these together because this thing will shock me if I touch it right now. See, I almost forgot to do that. It's very important that, because I was going to touch this and it would have shocked me really bad. These are the pickups. This picks up the energy and it's tapping into. These plates are highly energetic when they're spinning. When they're spinning, there's like an energy out here. It comes way out here. I can feel it. Like it'll make my hair on my arm stand up. And these tap into that energy field. They don't have to touch. I have another Wimshurst machine where there's brushes here touching. And I thought, wow, this person discovered how to not even have to touch those plates. Because the other one I have has these kind of brushes. Well, actually, this is a soft brush. The other one has like these hard metal brushes that scratch these things. I'm going to change those metal brushes to these soft material. I have extra material here. See that? And I don't know the name at the moment of that material, but it's very soft and it works. And this company here that made Sparkit, this is a little Wimshurst machine too. The company that made this one that has two counter-rotating discs in there, see that? They also made theirs so that the collectors are not touching. See this? Let's see if I can show you. That's the collector right there. Let's see if I can show you here. See, that collector is not touching right there. See that space between it? So that's how that works that way as well. See, on this side and that side. And the brushes on this one are there. See it? It's there on the inside and there. And they use the material, and it's there, and it's down here too. See, it's down there and then over there on the other side. And they use the soft material as well, so it's not scratching it. And they use the material that is, I think they said it was used to discharge the static electricity on printers, like on laser printers. So I don't know what that material is called, but if I press this one, let's see if it'll spark. See that? This one's electric and it has an on and off switch. I had asked the company if they can make me a large one, and they said just keep checking back with them. They, you know, if they get enough requests for that maybe they'll do it someday. I would like to make this one electric, where I don't have to crank the wheel with my hand, but I could just let it run. Look how big this one is. I think this is 18 inches diameter. 18 inches across from here to there is 18 inches. Look how beautiful this is. Masterpiece. But you want to see what this thing can do? It's very loud though. Wait till you see the sparks this does. That's interesting, isn't it? I had to bring it close enough to spark to get it started. And then once it started, I can then pull it away, right? I can then pull it away. Once it started, I could back it away. And now it's going further, because at first it didn't want to go, right? Now it's going. Look at that. And I don't know if that sounds loud to you, but it's very loud here. Very loud. This is 260,000 volts up to 600,000 volts. Okay, that's the range. You see that? That's a lot of power right there. I moved it further away to see if it'll go further. Let's see. That's pretty far. Anyway, that's a big spark. I've measured 8 inches before on that. That's around 8 inches right there as well. Anyway, that's I call it a free energy Wimshurst machine. And I have to remember to always touch these together after spinning it, because it will shock my hand if I touch that or get close to it. Anyway, so what's that doing, right? What is that Wimshurst machine doing? Here's what I know. Counter rotation, and then these neutralizer bars, these are called neutralizer bars, and I think these are connected together on each side, right? This part is connected to the other side. See that bar over there on the other wheel, right? So this goes here, and this goes there. And then study the Mithernitha Testatica machine as well, because that seems like they use the Wimshurst machine to oscillate two magnets, I think they look like kind of like horseshoe magnets, kind of, but not exactly. But just look at the machine, you'll see the magnets. I think they're oscillating those magnets, and I think all the energy is coming from the magnets. I think that's where the energy is coming from. So I think the Wimshurst machine and that machine is maybe just being used to oscillate the magnets, and then the magnets are what's actually allowing the release of energy, right? But that's just that's a thought experiment. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, I'm going to try to move through this a little bit. We'll keep going. We'll keep looking at the different books. I have a lot of books that talk about the energy in space. And here's the Anti-Gravity Handbook, revised 3rd edition. This is a UFO basically built by a human, right? A human-built UFO that can go warp speed. It can go faster than the speed of light. When it's just rotating magnets, right? It's spinning magnets. Imagine I don't remember how many there is, if it's like 12 or 13. I don't remember how many there were, but imagine magnets spinning in one space, right? Or imagine magnets spinning as they roll around this larger area, right? So this whole area is turning, and these magnets are turning like this. When you do that, when this thing does that, because he built a crude version of this when he first started, and it went right through the roof. So I'd love to build a crude version of it, but he also was told by the patent office. This is another person that was told, like in that book, we heard the father tell the son, I think it was, and in this book, the patent office told John Searle, never give away your secret. And I hear that all the time. People tell me that all the time. Like, what secret? I mean, what are you talking about? I think, oh my goodness. I mean, really? But he shares everything. So that's the good news, is everything's shared. And there's a lot of people that think of, maybe getting rich off of these ideas. And I think once everyone understands the theory of how things work, then the demand for free energy devices will be higher. Because right now, people just don't even think they work, right? People still think, oh, how can they work? They don't work. There's no energy in space, so they can't work. That's why getting educated on the energy in space is important. And, just because, like, for example, Richard Feynman and John Wheeler talked about it, but when I talk to people, they'll say, oh, well, they'll say, well, but that energy is only the energy that's in an atom, and you have to tear the atom apart to get that energy out. But actually, that energy is all around the atoms, and it's virtual particle flux fields, cosmic energy, dark matter, tachyon waves, gravity waves, virtual particle flux fields, 0 point energy. I mean, it has so many names, right? So there's energy everywhere, right? So we have to learn that on our own, though, and then we can teach each other that, right? So learn it on our own, and then share our theories with one another, right? And to speak from a place of optimism and possibility, knowing that we exist essentially in a free energy universe, right? I know that we charge for energy, but that's just the way our system is set up to be Our system set up is where we buy things and spend money on things, and we'll have to pay for our free energy devices, right? We have to pay for them. It's not free, but we're talking about this megawatts of energy in space. That's what we're talking about. And remember, perpetual motion, the good perpetual motion, not the perfect machine, not the perfect one, right? Only the universe has achieved perfection, right? If the universe is a closed system, maintains itself, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, then the universe is the perfect perpetual motion machine. But if we cannot replicate nature yet, and humans have good perpetual motion machines, that just means we have machines that need maintenance and get their energy from the open system, which is from the universe, right? Cosmic energy, or whatever you want to call it. They called it here cosmic energy, and also radiant energy, right? So here's some books that are good reading. We have Hidden Energy, right? Hidden Energy. Tesla-inspired inventors and a mindful path to energy abundance. The Quest for Zero-Point Energy. Engineering Principles for Free Energy. Tapping the Zero-Point Energy. How free energy and anti-gravity might be possible with today's physics. That's interesting, right? Water, the key to new energy. Cavitating electrolyzers and zero-point energy. Breakthrough power, how quantum leap new energy inventions can transform our world. Anti-gravity, the dream made reality. So these books actually kind of go together, right? These are both anti-gravity books, right? This is the man right here, John Searle. This man made a machine. See these magnets? These roll around here. See these magnets? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like there's 11 magnets there, but see these magnets around here, and there's 3 rows of them. One there, and one there. I think this is like a ferrous material, like a ferrous metal. And then that's all ferrous metal, that's a ferrous metal. And these are just magnets that roll around these metals. They roll around it. And I think he has coils that are not shown here. Let's look in here real quick. Let's look at this book. Let's have a look at this. Let's see what's going on here. And John Searle said that is it BBC? BBC? My apologies. I don't know if it's BBC or not. But there was a company that filmed him flying his spaceship. They made films of him flying his ship around when he was testing it, building it, testing it, everything. Lots of videos. And I guess they said they lost it or something. How do you lose something so important? You know what I mean? That's sad. That's really something. I mean, you can say there's no UFOs in the universe, which we know is not true. And then when humans build them, you say, well, we lost the footage, right? How does that happen? Professor Searle has stated for the record that the title anti-gravity is not technically correct, although this term is used by the general public to describe a repulsion from Earth's gravity. Scientific people will know that anti-gravity would be the opposite to gravity and would attract the Earth's gravity instead of repelling it. The inverse G vehicle, inverse G, using the Searle effect generator, creates its own gravity field. This field is like the Earth's field, and because of this, the two like fields repel each other. So instead of producing anti-gravity, the craft produces its own gravity. That's very important. And that's how we talk about free energy too, is we say free energy even though it's like not technically free. And we know that. We just use the word free because we're talking about something more efficient than we are presently widely using, right? So we keep using those words because it's kind of like the language that we know, right? Yeah. But it develops its own gravity. That's really amazing, isn't it? Let's have a look at this book. Who wants to build their own spaceship? Who wants to travel the universe? Does that sound exciting? Anti-Gravity, The Dream Made Reality, the story of John R.R. Searle by John A. Thomas Jr. This book contains information that was received by me from John R.R. Searle about his life and inventions. Searle has had an anti-gravity device since 1946. He also developed a generator of electricity that uses no input power as we know it. There has been much written about Searle and his work, but most of it is misinformation or guesswork. Many people have tried to duplicate his work, but none have succeeded. All information in this book is correct and directly from the source, Professor John R.R. Searle himself. This book is the story of a man who is trying to move the world into the future and has been for years. To me, I think you got to start a school. You got to start a school, right? You got to teach people. But before you even do that, whatever you want to teach in school, you got to make videos on YouTube, put them on YouTube, and have the classes, every little piece of theory taught in a video. Okay, yes, there's going to be commercials on it. I mean, what can we do about it, right? And then once you have all their videos and they teach us everything on video, then you can make your school, right? That's the way to do it. I think that's the way to do it. So keep making videos, everybody. Keep making videos. Now, when this person says no one in the world duplicated the technology, that's just according to that person's awareness, okay? Because people are doing things and don't necessarily share it with everybody, right? And we know that. Yeah, because I know people have built anti-gravity systems all over the planet, right? And if you talk to Ralph Ring said they have spaceships all over the planet ready to go, and everybody's just waiting for society, for our civilization to mature enough that we could have the technology. So now what that anti-gravity system is based on, I don't know if it's based on John Searle's particular design or another design, right? Because remember, there's infinite possibilities for designs. There's not just like one design, right? There's many, many ways to access the zero-point fields, cosmic energy, tachyon waves, gravity waves, virtual particle flux fields, dark energy, dark matter, Dirac sea of energy, right? There's many, many, many ways to access the infinite potential that is space. Okay, again, I'm looking for numbers. Where are we here? This book has been edited and illustrated by Jason A. Thomas, and I am deeply grateful for all of his help in compiling this work. I could not have done it without him. Thank you, Jason, for being the great son that you are from a proud father. Okay. And that's John Searle. This is the author, John A. Thomas Jr. And this is John Searle, the inventor. And it's interesting, he learned about this in his dreams. That he would dream about this system, and one day he built it. And it worked. It went right through the roof, never to be seen again. He built like a desktop version of it, a crude, simplified version of the system, right? So this is the one I think that's for flight, like for going into faster than the speed of light. Just this right here. When this is working, when these magnets are spinning around this, these spin around here, these spin around here, and these spin around here. They roll around there, right? When it's doing that, it creates a force field around the craft that protects the craft. So if you were to crash, it would just kind of bounce off something. It wouldn't even hurt. It wouldn't hurt anybody. That's my understanding. What does this say? Birth and childhood, first dreams and how they were received. first jobs, the law of the squares, first SEGs made, first units that went airborne, first magnets made. Now let's peek at this. Let me just get these pages to stay open here. Key facts. 2 types of dreams which are related. There are always 8 squares. I am always standing in square 2 and my feet are always in the same position. My pebble is always on square 3. There are 4 dreams a year. There are 6 years of dreams. In the first dream, it is clear that I shall have something to do with very high energy levels of a solid structure whose action is created by rotation. Because it is a solid structure, it belongs to the third state of nature. This is all very interesting. Okay, nature operates here on Earth in 3 prime states, which are gases, liquids, solids. There is a 4th state of nature, but it is not available here on Earth, plasma. Thus, in the dream, it's a pebble, a solid object, and being in square 3, which declares it as being an object of the 3rd state of nature. Let's look at fact 1 and fact 3. There are 2 types of dreams. Stop, think, act. I'm just moving through the book right now. We're just going to look at things. And again, this book needs to be in every library on the planet, right? So we can all be on the same page, right? Education, 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 right? Let's see what this says. Group 1, rotate. All odd numbers belong to this group. That means half of all numbers are a group 1 class. Group 2, oscillate. So rotate, oscillate. All even numbers that divide exactly by 4. That means half of all even numbers belong to this group. Group 3, oscillate except for the center cross which rotates. Half of all even numbers belong to this group. All even numbers that do not divide exactly by 4. There are numbers which nature does not use in its building blocks. These have been listed in the Law of the Squares, Book 1. The simplest group 1 square that can be shown is a square 3. See, this is all something that can be studied in great detail, right? See all this? This can all be studied to a great degree, right? And if you want to make a hoverboard like Back to the Future had, and I mean as simple as that, right? Not the special materials that cost a lot of money where you have to have a special track and all that stuff. Okay, but you got to study this kind of, you study the research here and don't give up, right? And then if you want to sell your idea, that's fine. But if you want to teach, if you want to educate people on the theory, that's what really moves us forward, right? And that's important too. Educate the theory, right? Of your discoveries. The 3 frames of all kernels are space frame, time frame, energy frame. Who knows what all that means? Do you guys know what that means? I don't know what that means. But I would imagine that all science schools and engineering schools should definitely have this book. But also all schools, all libraries, every library. A library is about learning, right? This is really, really important. This is very important material, right? Let's see what we have here. Let's kind of move through this book. Let's see what glossary of terms is. Okay, so we have space or space fabric, ether or ether, inertial mass, gravitational mass, primary magnetism, glowing core. Look at that. Glowing magnetism, glowing core. A center core, ether. A center where ether is converted from undisturbed state to perturbed state, giving rise to various manifestations of primary magnetism. Example, gravity, magnetism, electrostatic fields, matter, and radiant energy. Isn't that interesting? That's that word radiant energy again. EMF, electromotive force, potential difference produced by separation of charge. Inertia, reluctance of matter to change its state of motion. Levity, I like that definition of inertia, the reluctance of matter to change its state of motion. I've often read this word and not understood what the description, but this makes sense to me. And I keep finding that in this research, very complex ideas are put into simple words. And my gut brain, right? We were talking about the gut brain in the other video, because we have two brains. We have a brain in our head, and we have a brain. They say our gut brain is a brain in our stomach. And you ever say, oh, I got a gut feeling about this, like this doesn't feel right to me, or this feels right to me, it's a gut feeling, right? And people say it's our gut brain, right? Well, when I study these books like this, you know it's the real thing. You know, it just feels right, and it makes sense. It's understandable. This book's not telling me, oh, go look at this other field of knowledge and then come back. You know, study this for years and then we'll take. This is all just direct and simple. It's not convoluted, I think is the word. Someone just described to me that a lot of science and things are convoluted. They're made, and it seems like they're made very complex and inaccessible, where you just can't grasp things, right? But people that have mastered nature say that nature is quite simple once you understand it, right? Quite simple indeed. Let's see, levity, in opposition to gravity. And remember, he said that well, they also call it a levity disk, right? I've heard the spaceship called a levity disk. But John Searle said that his ship creates its own gravity, right? Ooh, that reminded me of this. Where's that drawing I had earlier? John Bedini talked about the G-field generator. That's the G-field generator. Where's the G-field generator at? Where's my drawing at? I'm trying to find my drawing here. I don't know. Oh, here it is. That's the G-field generator right there. Tachyon, and I also called it a G-field. It's called the G-field generator. I put tachyon there. 27 to 100 times the speed of light. Look at this. See how everything's coming full circle? So when I study all these books, even though the books are totally separate, they're all speaking the same language. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Now we go on Google and they're saying you got to go spend years over here and then come back and read this, and then it just doesn't end. I'm just going in these big circles. Well, guess what? I've studied those things for years, and nothing became more clear to me. Nothing became more clear. But I can read this stuff, I can do some experiments, and it becomes more clear and more clear and more clear. Okay, so it makes sense. If you want to study free energy, we have to study people that have come before us. We can't study people that say there's no energy there, and then just go around bullying people on the internet saying, well, there's nothing there, you know. But let's see, if this is a G-field generator right here, this part spins. I just don't know what to connect this to, so I'm guessing that we connect the output to something, right? Well, just guessing right now, just a guess, maybe two counter-rotating discs, like the Wimshurst machine. Let's look at this for a second. What if I connect the output of this, right, See this output? These are outputs. That's one output right there. And that's an output right there, right? I'm trying to find something to point with here. Use a magnet. I don't know if that's working. So that's an output right there. That's an output right there, right? And if I connect those two outputs, let's see, how can I do this? I was going to say connect one to this side and one to the other side, but this bar is connected on both sides, so that wouldn't work. Let me see. What I'm wondering is there a way to introduce that frequency, those pulses, those two pulses, to something? For example, what if I put one wire into the ground, right, and the other wire to this? Would it make this machine try to move through space if it's spinning really fast, right? And I touch one side on that G-field generator to this, would it make this thing, would it change its weight? Here's one thing I could do. I could lay this on its side, and I could see if the weight changes when that's spinning really fast. See, these are kind of experiments I think of, right? See what I just did? One side to the ground, and one side to this, and see if anything changes, and look for anomalies. And also do this, put these apart and see what happens. What do these do? You know what I connected when I was experimenting? Oh, and this frustrates me so much. I was experimenting with the, I think I mentioned this to you too, to everyone in my videos, but when I was experimenting with capturing energy from these plasma globes here, that's a Fantasia plasma globe. See that? I don't know if you could read that. It says Fantasia. That's a big plasma globe. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. That's the Eye of the Storm one. I thought I had one more. Oh, I guess not. When I was experimenting with those, and I was experimenting with collecting the energy around it, I had hooked up the circuitry. You know, what was it? It was it was like a full wave bridge, but the what am I trying to say? It was a full wave bridge, but the diodes have to be fast recovery diodes. I think they're called Schottky diodes. Schottky, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. Those are fast recovery diodes, I think it's called. And I was using a capacitor, which also was, I think, called a fast recovery capacitor, which might have been used for like fluorescent lights and stuff like that, if I recall correctly. Now that full wave bridge connected to a capacitor and collecting the energy from like a wire or a plate, like a same material, copper, right? A copper plate next to the plasma globe. I had hooked up what did I do? I think I was running several of those circuits, right? The capacitors and the diodes. I was running several of those. I don't know if it was in parallel or series. I'm guessing it was parallel because I was trying to get more current, right? Because we already had high voltage, right? I was trying to get higher current. Now, I hooked it up wrong. I hooked up something wrong somehow. I think I did. I think it was wrong. And I'll tell you something. That thing exploded with the biggest spark. I could not believe how much energy was there. Now, the bad thing I did is I knew it was hooked up wrong. And I said, no, I have to hook it up right. And I was thinking to myself, if I hook it up right, is it going to have even more power? And I was tired, so I didn't write everything down how I hooked it up wrong. And when I hooked it up the correct way, it actually was much less power, so it wasn't as much. So I don't know what I did. I still don't know how I hooked it up, that made it do that. But that's how things are. Like there can be a way of connecting things and getting a lot more power out, and it can happen by accident. And I still don't know to this day what I did, but I also wasn't really that excited about repeating that because it was so much power that it seemed like it was dangerous. But I certainly don't want to just make big sparks, right? And at that time, I was just making sparks. I was sparking things. But look at the spark on that Wimsource machine. That's a 260,000 to 600,000 volts. And I'm very careful when I'm working with that. Okay, everyone. Well, let's end on this note. And we'll come back and we'll look at these books. Anti-Gravity Handbook. This is the book we're looking at right now. Anti-Gravity, The Dream Made Reality. There's also a DVD, which I just saw. I just saw it when I was getting the books together. This is the DVD right here. It's the John Searle story. And it says, his life, his machine, his words. Does this man have the answer to the energy crisis? A documentary on the extraordinary life of John Roy Robert Searle. And that's his craft levitating in the sky right there. That's a photo of his full-size spaceship, right? And I think it's BBC had, I think, hundreds of hours of that ship flying around. And then they said later they lost the footage, which is very sad. Because something like that, you'd think that would be duplicated and many times duplicated and shared. Because that's something that interests everyone, especially engineers and people in aerospace, right? And really, Lockheed, but also NASA and JPL with their rocketry. It seems like we should be using the electrogravitics for flight because it creates that protective force field around the craft, and that's very important, right? That gravitational force field that protects the occupants, right? John Saucer Man's UFO. It sounded like they're making fun of him, and that's what people say. They say, people got him, but this is the media is doing this. Whoever wrote this paper, and why do we have to make fun of people? This man was a brilliant engineer. Saucer Man? Really? That makes me feel like throwing up right now. I feel nauseous by people. I feel like they're making fun of him. It makes me feel sick. It's like he's being bullied. I could be wrong, but that's just what it feels like to me. That doesn't feel respectful to me to say that. But there's one of the generators running. See, there are just coils on the outside there? See those coils on the outside? And if I understand correctly, the coils are AC and DC, both. If you want to see a video that really helps understand John Searle's work, and also the infinite energy of the vacuum space, right, and zero-point fields, watch the movie, a YouTube video. I think it's by the, what channel is that? Better Energy. I don't know if it's Better Energy Movement or something like that. Better Energy Movement. But the video is called Infinite Energy from the Vacuum, if I recall correctly. And Russell Anderson. I think Russell Anderson's in there. I think that's his name. And Russell Anderson explains how the John Searle craft flies, and also how many other crafts fly, and also how there's infinite energy in space, right here, right? The space that we're breathing, the space we walk through. So this is well known, but somehow the internet, just like doing a Google search, has not caught up to that. And it seems like Wikipedia is just not catching up at all to anything that comes to, this kind of technology at all, because I haven't seen it. So, and I don't know why that is, and people have different theories about it, but I just stopped looking at Wikipedia because it just doesn't seem reliable, even though it sounds like it's supposed to be a good idea where people can update it themselves. But, we've known for a long time. I mean, look, this book here was originally written in 1931, right? The original book was written in 1931. So this has been around for a while. And I don't know why Wikipedia can't keep up with that, and why just Google searching doesn't have at least, well, I would think like 90% would be this knowledge, and like maybe 10% would be, no, you can't do that, it doesn't exist. But instead it seems like it's mostly people saying there's no energy, so there can't be any free energy because there's just no energy. And that just completely ignores everything that's, if you read all the different perspectives, it's really ignoring all the people that have lived this life and proven over and over and over. And then people will say, oh, well, when's someone going to prove it? Well, that's because when people do prove it, it's not on the news. You have to look for that. It has been proven. These things have all been proven for hundreds of years, but it's not on the news, and it's not like, it's not, it's something that has to be looked for, and you'll find it if you look. If you look, you'll find it. You'll find an abundance of it. You'll find all the proof that you want. I mean, what I mean is independent verification, right? Which everybody asks for that. They're like, well, why can't someone independently verify it? Well, things have been independently verified for the past several hundred years, but you have to look for it. It's just not going to come to you like on your doorstep and just like be like, oh, look what we discovered, I mean, I'm trying to do that kind of, right? Because I enjoy sharing things, so I'm sharing with you. I am bringing this to your doorstep, your digital doorstep, right? By making videos, and it brings it right to your phone. I'm bringing it. It's even better than your doorstep. I'm bringing it right to your phone, right to you. So we'll keep going. I'll keep sharing, and just know that you may create the next free energy system, the free energy device, and it's okay if you don't know how it works. Share your discovery. Like I said, turn comments off, because oh my goodness, who would want to deal with that? Most people will not go, or not most, but there's a lot of people that won't even go on YouTube a while back just because they didn't want to deal with the comments and didn't even know they can turn the comments off. Comments are pretty easy to turn off, and if you have questions, you can actually contact YouTube themselves. They have customer service. You can connect with them through the website, right? And you can talk to a live person through writing. I don't know if it's calling in, but I know you can write them. I've written them before when I've been stuck on something like settings or something like that, like something I need help with. And they're very helpful and very kind. And what they don't know, they'll find the answer. And so, yeah, I would say turn comments off and make all the videos you can about your free energy system and show how to build it, how to make it. And I know a lot of people are doing that. And all we can do is keep moving forward. And I don't think the goal is for the news or for the big, media, if I say it that way. Not big media, but just like, the people that we look to for our news. I don't think this is something that's necessarily going to be talked about, because it seems like it's just made fun of when it's there, right? But it is something that we can give the gift to ourselves by sharing with one another, sharing the understanding, sharing the journey of learning, and just building on that, right? Building on possibilities, and building on simplicity, and building on minimalism. Like, how much can we take away from something, from a machine, and have it still work, right? And that's nature. I mean, look, we're a big rock of material. And we're an engine in space. There's no brushes. We're like a brushless motor, right? Don Smith said that. He said the Earth's like a brushless motor with a north and south pole moving through space. We have a beautiful system here. And I'll talk more about that in time. But for now, we'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone. This is probably going to take several weeks to upload, so I apologize for that. But you'll get the video. Well, to tell you when I'm shooting this is being made. This video right now is being made early morning of December 1st of 2023. That's when this video is being made. I don't know how many days it'll take to upload, but I hope you get it soon. Okay, bye everyone. Have a great day. Bye.